When most people see obstacles, Stephanie Sherwood sees opportunities. She's not just an entrepreneur, she's a mission driven connector who's transforming how Christian women engage in business and community. She founded the Tapestry Network with a bold vision of creating a platform where faith, professional development, and personal growth intersect. After spending 15 years in corporate leadership at Macy's, she pivoted to entrepreneurship, first launching a mobile boutique and then building a nonprofit that's empowering women across multiple regions. Her framework, which she brilliantly calls businessry, isn't just about networking, it's about weaving together purpose, community, and professional excellence. She isn't just talking about transformation, she's living it. And with her book, The Tapestry Effect, and her commitment to establishing 1,000 or more support groups worldwide, she's proving that when you integrate faith, strategy, and genuine connection, remarkable things start to happen. Please welcome Stephanie Sherwood to the show. All right, Stephanie, welcome to the show.
Glad to be here. Thanks for having me.
You bet. My pleasure. I'm glad we could do this. So, for anybody who's tuning in and maybe isn't familiar with you, why don't you just give them a quick rundown of who you are, your business, and what you do for people?
I am a girl who wears many hats. Life is lifing. The husband's horn just went off. It stopped. So I live in Central Oregon on 5 acres. We live in the trees. Love it here.
Very cool.
I have been in the entrepreneurial space for about 30 years now. Well, probably 25 years. Came out of corporate America, mid-level management, and in the process found that I had a lot of brokenness that I didn't realize was a part of my story. So the last 15 years has really been a healing journey into who I am today. And I run an organization called the Tapestry Network, and we serve faith-based women entrepreneurs in the marketplace, helping them find out who they are, whose they are, and stand in their birthright and their identity and the power that they are given. And I also run another organization called She Creates Legacy, and I'm launching my publishing business, She Creates Legacy Publishing, because story matters. And so often we think our story doesn't matter. And I'll just give you a quick example. One of the girls, that's one of our members, her daughter, and, I'm faith-based. So if your audience isn't, it's who I am. And
They'll get over it.
so she was like, she she's a pastor at her church, and her daughter said, "Mommy, why doesn't God love me?" She's like, "What do you mean?" And she goes, "Well, nothing bad's happened to me." Because they're an outreach church, and that means that they serve a lot of people who come out of addiction and abuse and divorce and all of the ugly things of life. And I learned in that moment that all stories matter. And she needed to know that despite, we all have story, and it's all a part of what makes us unique. It what weaves us into the fabric of life. And the hard stories are important, and the everyday stories are important, because here was this little girl who thought she had no value because nothing hard had happened to her. Because we don't talk about the more normal parts of life. I've made some bad decisions, like, legally, technically, I embezzled money from my husband. I could have gone to jail, right? In trying to keep my business afloat. I got into credit card debt trying to keep my business afloat. And yet those are stories that I'm not proud of them. But if I can share that story and show people that, we've been married for over 37 years, and I did something really bad, and we overcame it, and we stayed together, and, we are stronger now. And so that's not an easy story to share. It's not a horrible story either, but it's an important story because it can give hope to somebody else. So.
Yeah, I agree. And I've just realized you just gave me like 15 different places we could go with this. So now I'm trying to figure out exactly where the conversation is meant to go.
I have a tendency to do
No,
that.
it's great. I love it. And to your point about stories, I mean, that's one of the fantastic things about this. For me personally, I'm just very curious. I love learning about people. And like you're saying, it's so easy, especially it seems like in the culture of the US today, it's so easy to put people in boxes, right? We see somebody who's Christian as an example, and we just assume I know everything I need to know about that person based on my definition of Christian, or insert thing here, Democrat, Republican, entrepreneur, any definition, right? But the more we talk to individuals, it's exactly what you're saying. Everybody has their stories and their insights and their own nuance. And I love that so much. I think that's so valuable. I wanted to ask you, so you originally started out in corporate America. So how did you end up there? And then how did you make the decision to go out on your own?
So corporate, I started with Macy's right out of high school and I worked my way, up the corporate ladder. I plateaued within their business structure because I wasn't able to go into the buying office. So I plateaued, and my manager at the time was like, "Oh, you gave me 40 hours this week. Great. Oh, you gave me 45 hours next week. Oh, great. Oh, you gave me 60. Oh, great. Oh, you gave me 70. Oh, great." And so it was just for this work
Yeah.
life balance of, the more I gave, the more she expected. And we had two young kids at the time. And I was just not feeling it. And so that's how so
Yeah.
I was there for about 15 years. And then I actually went and worked for an international software developer that developed and sold point of sale inventory control systems to small to medium sized
Yeah.
retailers. And that was a really cool experience, working internationally, being the liaison between the R&D department and then the sales force, and working to try to
Hmm.
break the software, and trying, and because of my retail background, what a real life case scenario might look like. So as the consumer, when I come to the cash register, what are my expectations? What are the expectations of the person, punching the buttons on the other side? So in that, I have always loved retail. And so I left Macy's. And
Hmm.
you either have a love or hate relationship with retail. There really is no in between. And so as
Yeah.
I was
Yeah.
developing this understanding of what software was and what I could do with it, I had been on a business trip for my company and I met a girlfriend of mine. We reconnected in Texas, and her sister-in-law was doing purse parties, and I was like, "Oh my gosh, that would be so fun." So my mom and I started sewing purses, and I started buying jewelry and handbags and all of the things because I always wanted to be a buyer. That was like one of my big dreams of being, in a career person, was I wanted to be a buyer. And I couldn't do it with Macy's. So I got to be a buyer myself. I got to buy, all the things. I had 8 women that worked for me. I got to create, and I, got to do all the things. That's also where I got into trouble with my credit card debt, was trying to keep my business afloat. So that was my transition between corporate into my entrepreneurial journey, was through working for a software developer. So yeah, long story short.
Very cool. And then yeah, so you had your own with the decorations, the bags, all that. That was the boutique
Yes.
that you had
Yeah.
before the tapestry. So what was the sort of pivot or trigger for you to realize that you needed to go into something even different and you went into the networking and community building? How did that happen?
So at the time when I started, it was called a Salzier Boutique. And when I started it, my dad was the president of the local chamber of our city, and realized that networking was, I'd never had to network before. And so, my first experience into networking was through the Chamber of Commerce. And I learned very quickly that that was not where I wanted to hang out. It just wasn't my thing. But I joined because, I was supporting my dad. And so then I started looking for, okay, what really is networking? What is it? So I joined a networking organization and was like, oh, wow, this is like really cool, and I love to support women. I love to support. And so, but really my heart is to support women. And so in doing that, I joined a very local, one-off networking group. And then I was like, oh, I think I need to maybe do more of this, have a larger footprint in the networking world. And I discovered an organization based out of Texas called eWomen Network, and actually got hired as a director for them, and created my own networking chapters and communities and started doing the thing. And over that period of 6 years that I worked for them, that was where my secret got found out. That's where, my world started to unravel, and that led me down my faith journey. I accepted Jesus was a little girl and been in and out of church my whole life. But in that moment of literally like come to Jesus moment, like when you have hit, we all have our own personal rock bottom. And so I had hit my personal rock bottom and I didn't know what else to do or where else to go except for me, as a believer. I turned back to God and I was like, I cannot fix this on my own. There is no realistic reason why my husband and I should still be married. There just isn't,
Right.
except for me. My story is God saved our marriage. And, we've been married for over, I think I said this already, for over 37 years. And then
Yeah.
doing that, I realized that the organization that I was working for just wasn't aligning with where I was headed on my personal journey.
Hmm.
And so I started looking for an organization that would support me first as a woman, then as a Christ follower, and then as somebody who was called into the marketplace. And I couldn't find it. And so I sat down and I had a pity party. Why can't I find what I want? I need this because I wanted to be able to talk about my business and I wanted to talk about my faith, and I didn't want to have to be, and then I learned every denomination, every church is different. So I'm not trying to say that, and Christianity is, for me, it's a personal relationship. It's not so much about the religion. It's about that personal, intimate relationship that I can have with God. But in the church I was attending, I learned very quickly that we could not speak about business unless I was out of business or I was out of work and I was having them pray to help me find a job, pray for a job.
Mm.
And in that season, I was having a lot of turmoil and a lot of struggle for the organization I worked for. I'm very, very, very grateful for them. They taught me so much. They embraced me. But there was just some things, like I said, they were kind of going this way and I was going that way. And I didn't have any place to
Right.
talk about that. And so out of, my tears, my mess, that's how we got the Tapestry Network. And it was I couldn't find it. So God said, why don't you just build it? And so we did. And here we are 15
Yeah.
years later.
That's amazing. And so how have you grown it? I mean, usually, you think of most traditional businesses, it's kind of obvious how you might market it. I'm curious for something like this, how have you gotten attention and brought people into the groups and continue to grow?
Word of mouth, social media, email, all of the normal things. It's been an ebb and flow. Yes, we are 15 years old, but by the standards of the world, we are still a very, very small organization. And I will tell you that that's hard not to get so focused on what other organizations are doing. And so it doesn't matter whether
Yeah.
you believe in God, you believe in Buddha, whatever you believe in, it's really part of that process as an entrepreneur not to get so distracted by what somebody's doing over there and somebody's doing over there. And, why is she or he having what appears to be that overnight success and, their numbers grow. And I'm like,
Yeah.
I'm still sitting here struggling. Right. And that's why we're not called to compare because, again, doesn't matter if you are believe in God or whatever God you believe in, we're still not called to compare because my journey, my story is meant for me. And that has nothing to do with religion. That's just my story. My journey is meant for me. And so, in especially in entrepreneurial spaces, and I'm going to say I struggle with this, not keeping my eyes on what Susie Q is doing and what Betty Boop is doing. And so you have to be really grounded on what your calling is. And, I don't
Yeah.
know who actually said this. It is not me. I don't know what important guru type person said this, but if you're not willing to invest a minimum of 5 years, walk away, walk away. Go get a
Mhm.
job, go get a job, punch a clock, work 9 to 5, make money for somebody else. Um, because if you're not willing and able and have that just tenacity to invest, again, a minimum of 5 years, then this might not be an entrepreneurial journey, may not be the right thing for you. And that is okay. I mean, it really is okay. And so it's doing what fills your soul, fills your heart, fills your mind. And again, I don't, it doesn't matter what you believe, we all are here for purpose. And so, at the end of the day, when I put my head on my pillow, did I have impact today? Did I make a difference in somebody else's life today? And that may be flipping burgers. That may be picking up the trash. You can be purpose driven no matter what you're doing, no matter where you go, no matter who you serve, but do it with purpose. And so be the best hamburger flipper you can be the best garbage collector you can be the best mom that you can be. And, we've heard and read stories over the years. And I was just sharing this the other day. There was a kid, a high school kid. This was years ago. And he had cleared out his locker because he didn't want his mom to have to clean up the mess after he lost his battle with mental wellness. And he had every intention of taking his life. And some kid that lived in the neighborhood saw him walking down the road and said, "Hey, that load looks heavy." Had no idea what that person, had no idea that when that person said that to this
Right.
boy, and that boy is still alive and he's still sharing that story. And so sometimes, and I think for women,
Yeah.
I hang out with women, I don't hang out with dudes. So I can't speak to the dude
Right.
perspective, but women really struggle with purpose. Like, what am I here on planet Earth to do? How am I going to have an impact? And I share that story often. So then when we're struggling and we're thinking like, I'm not doing enough, I'm not having a big enough impact, I'm not walking in purpose, that smile could save somebody's life. That's purpose. Asking somebody if I can
Yeah.
figuratively or literally help you carry the load, that's purpose. And so that's one of my missions in life, is to help people understand that they are significant because they are here. And they're significant because they exist. They don't have to be significant because, they were the ones who developed the airplane or, the next big thing.
Right.
You're significant simply and powerfully because you are here. And, that is it's my passion, because I hate to see people just stuck in circling in that, what am I here for? You're here because you're significant, and a way will be made for you, but you've got to take action.
Yeah. There's so much you said that I hope people are paying attention to. It was funny that you mentioned specifically the garbage collector and having purpose. We had a garbage collector who my kids would rush to the window to see, because every week when he came, he would make faces and do something silly. And I mean, so every week on the trash day, these kids knew,
Yeah.
like, it's trash man Mike, he's coming. Like, they would run to the window. And it doesn't sound like much, but like you're saying, like that little thing, you never know what the other side of that is going through, and how that one little thing, it cost him nothing, could completely change somebody's day and trajectory, right? And he's a trash man, like you said. Like, no, what's the purpose? It's like, well, he's making the most of it in that moment.
Right. And he obviously has a servant's heart. He's serving, picking up. My dad actually worked for the local,
Mhm.
he had a lot of jobs, but he actually worked at the garbage supporting plant. And so he managed the operations of where literally in California, where I'm originally from, they would literally collect the trash bags, and people would stand on conveyor belts and they would slash open people's trash and they would sort bottles, cans, recyclables. And you want to talk about literally a stinky job. And you imagine what
Right.
it's like in Northern California when it's 110 degrees outside and you are sorting
Yeah.
through people's trash. And my dad didn't, I think that was probably one of my dad's most impactful careers, because he knew
Mm.
his showing up there and telling those people that they were valuable, even though they were literally sorting trash, um, is it's important. He got to show up and he got to smile and he got to tell those people that they mattered, even though they were literally sorting trash, like job I would not hope, I wish I never have to do.
Right.
So.
Yeah. Well, and the perspective is so important on that, and that's what you mentioned earlier with the entrepreneurial challenges of comparing yourself to somebody else, and I think that's I do think in a lot of ways it's really a natural result of entrepreneurship because when you're new to it, you're always looking for guidance and mentors. So you're like, "Hey, I don't really know marketing, teach me marketing. I don't know sales, teach me sales." But like you're saying, you have to be careful of then only having that one system or only comparing yourself to other people. And like you sort of at some point you do have to develop the skill of trusting and having faith in yourself. Like you've got the tools now. You don't need anybody to nobody can show you the way. I guess I'll say it that way. It's like
Right.
at a certain level, only you can chart the next course because like you're saying, it's your story. Nobody else can write the next part of your story. You have the foundational tools, you move forward from there. And anyway, so to take it back to what your dad was saying, those people didn't have social media. They weren't looking at videos on their lunch break of people in nice cars and fancy vacations, all that. They were able to figure out how to be happy. Just they had money on their bank and they had food on the table and they had a house and I think that's really important. I think we've lost that just being grateful for the small things.
Yeah, somebody, we say this all the time. If you went to bed tonight and only woke up with what you had physically spoken gratitude for in the last 30 to
Oh,
60 days, what would you wake up with? You want to talk about
wow.
perspective. And,
Holy cow.
I think I thank God for my pillow, and I thank God for my blankets, and I thank God for my bed.
Yeah.
I've had many stories. I've sat with thousands of women over the years, and we've, shared stories. And I'm just like you. I'm a very curious person, and I love to hear about the human experience. And it goes back to my original thought of, the value of story. And these
Mhm.
women would say, I slept in a car when I was a kid, and it's fine because I had my mom. And I was like, oh, wow.
Right.
Like, I had a mom and a dad, and I had a house, and I never,
Right.
never wondered where a meal was going to come from. We weren't rich by any stretch of the imagination growing up, but I had a bed, my own bed. I had my own pillow, my own blanket.
Right.
I had food on my table. I never worried for anything. And that yet, I have a dear friend who went through an unwanted divorce and found herself living in her car. Um, and, again, not a proud moment. It's not something she goes around sharing on the street corners. Hey, I was homeless. As a 50
Right.
something year old
Yeah.
woman to be homeless, that is not easy. But yet her ability to be grateful now is so different, and she doesn't take anything for
Mhm.
granted. Like,
Right.
she can put a pen in her hand. She's grateful for the pen. And, I think we've
Right.
lost so much compassion and sympathy, which is different than empathy, um, because we've stopped connecting at that deeper level. And we live in
Yeah.
a disposable world, especially here, the United
Right.
States, richest country in the world. We
Yeah.
live in a very disposable, and I mean disposable on all fronts. Things,
Right.
relationships. If you if you I'm just I'm going to just, count the cancel culture that we live in. Unwilling to sit down, and
Right.
I want to be like you started with, I want to be curious. You want to be curious about the human condition, and other people, and what that looks like, and how does that make that other person feel. And I was listening to a podcast by Simeon, what's his name? The guy, Simon Simiak, whatever, however you say his name. And he's on,
Simon Sinek. Yeah.
yeah, he was sharing a story where he had a very, very dear friend, the female, and they grew up very differently. And they got into, I may not share the story exactly right, but basically this disagreement. And he was so easy just to say, oh, well, oh, well. And she called him on it and said, what? Like, I'm a human being. Like, I bring value. And we don't have to agree on everything, but I'm valuable because I'm here and I'm breathing and, words are coming out of my mouth. And so what they decided on was they were going to, every time they got into a disagreement or had some difference of opinion, they were going to talk until they could find that one thing that they could both stand behind and agree on, and then agree to disagree on everything else. And I think that's a lost art.
Right.
It's a lost art. I don't have to believe your
100%.
I don't have to believe your political beliefs. I don't have to believe your political beliefs. I don't have to believe your I don't have to believe anything that you believe, but there's going to be one thing that we can agree on. But what I will tell you is that you are important because you're here on planet Earth
Yeah.
and you're breathing, and therefore you bring value to the world because you're here. We can agree on that. We both bring value. And it's a lost art. I believe I'm substantially older than you. Uh, and I'm in my late 50s, and in watching so many adult kids just say, you know what? I don't need you. I'm going to cancel my parents. And for no reason. And it's just kind of this, and I think a lot of it stems from political climates. If you don't believe what I believe, I'm just going to cancel you. You know, we
Yeah,
we have
absolutely.
we have very powerful people on very big platforms using them to not build up our society, but to tear it down. And it's so unfortunate when you could be on that platform saying people have value, even if you agree to disagree and find some common ground. Because, if you believe this and I believe that, that doesn't mean that, you know, this coming out of COVID. I mean, it's been an interesting time to be alive on this planet. It definitely
It
has
has been.
stretched our ability to bring compassion into the world.
Yeah, I had this exact same conversation with Dr. Camille Preston. She refers to it as shallowing. And it's basically like we don't go deep anymore. We don't go deep with people. Like disposable is the word to use, which I think is perfectly appropriate. It's like I'm going to be lightly involved in a bunch of relationships. And the moment it's uncomfortable for me, I'm just going to dispose of that relationship. I'm not going to work for it. I'm not going to push myself. I'm not going to stretch myself to make it. I'm just done with you. You're the problem. The problem's out there. My comfort is the most important thing. Whereas, like you're talking about, your friend that was homeless or your friend that lived in a car when she was a child, if all of a sudden all of us had this fear that we weren't going to have enough food, we would find common ground immediately. Because ultimately, we all want our kids to be healthy. We all want to feel safe. We all want to have shelter. We all want to have food. Like we agree on more things than we probably disagree on. We all agree that we have a right to safety and to take care of our loved one. I mean, there's all these things we agree on, but I disagree with you on who should be president. So you're dead to me.
Mhm.
It's like, how does that make any sense? It's just, and it for me, it's been since COVID. You mentioned that. Like I've noticed it a lot more since COVID, man. That I just had never in my life have I seen people so quick to assume that their side has all the right answers and information, and the other side not only doesn't, but is evil.
Mm.
And it's like, I mean, I felt like I was looking at a different world when
Yeah,
all that was
it's it
happening, and it
it
really
it
hasn't stopped since,
it
unfortunately.
really it hasn't stopped, and it's only going to stop if we stop. If,
Yeah,
I have to be willing to say that I I I I want to look at the person in the mirror when I go to bed at night, and I want to wake up to that same person in the morning and look at that same person in the mirror and be like, "Yeah, did you make some mistakes today? Yeah, I did. Did you own up to them? Yeah, I did. And then I'm going to try to be better today than I was yesterday." And you're absolutely right. We have to own our own stuff. And I can't deflect. I'm a mom of two adult kids. They're both in their 30s, and I have made so many mistakes as a mom. So many mistakes as a mom, right? But I'm not saying that I've always apologized immediately, because sometimes we don't know what we don't know until something else like comes across and you're like, oh crap, I did that. I didn't even realize
Yeah.
I did
Right.
that. But it's in that place of being humble. And what is going to happen if you apologize? I promise you, if you tell somebody you're sorry, you're not going to get zapped by a bolt of lightning. You're not going to get
Right.
sucked into the
Yeah.
earth. Um, it may sting a little bit and it may hurt when you've got to realize that you've done something. It's not a good feeling, but the other side of that is way worse than admitting when
Yeah.
you were wrong. And I think that we live in a society right now where I'm not wrong. I could be wrong. And
Right.
and I mean, it was so funny when we moved from California to Oregon, we had to be relicensed. And I thought I was going to have to take a test, a written test. So I studied and I prepared and I studied and I prepared. And, so I got my Oregon driver's license 3 years ago. So that meant I would have had my California driver's license for like 30 years. And obviously, road things have changed. The amount of road rage questions that were on the Oregon driving test it was asinine. It was asinine that that's even become a part of our driving curriculum, that we have to know how to
Right.
properly manage road rage.
Hmm.
Like, I'm like, why is that even on a driving test? Well, it's because that's the you know, and my husband was still down in California because we were going back and forth. He had his business down there and we hadn't shut it down yet. So I'm up here by myself and I'm in our Oregon house and I'm studying him and I'm calling him and I'm like, you're not going to believe this question. And he's like, are you serious? That is on your driving test? And I'm like, yeah. And then I'd call him back 5 minutes later. Oh my gosh, you're not going to believe this question. And he's like, are you serious? And I'm like, yeah. And I'm like, I thought there would be more questions on, how to manage snow and how to manage black ice.
Yeah. Right. How to drive, actually,
Yeah,
how to drive.
how to drive,
Yeah.
not how to manage the best way to
Yeah.
manage road rage. But that
Isn't
just
that wild?
speaks to the climate that we're living in, and only we
Yeah.
can affect the change. They say, do you,
100%.
you know, be the change that you want to see. And if you're not satisfied where your life is, don't expect somebody else to change it. Only you can take hold of your life, your relationships, your jobs, your circumstances, your housing. Yes, there is support, and we are designed to be in community, and community is important, and we heal and grow in community. But yet I've got to be the person that says, stake in the ground. I'm done. I'm going to make wise choices. And I used to say that to my kids as they were getting out of the car when they were in high school. Hey, be kind, make wise choices. And they would just turn around and look at me and go, are you serious? Yeah, I'm serious. Make wise choices.
Right. Oh, that's so great. I don't know. I think for anybody that's listening, the takeaway is exactly what you said, is like it has to start with us. Because to your point about road rage, one of the things I think of a lot is I've got 4 kids now. As I think about an adult human being who cannot manage their emotions in the middle of traffic, I'm like, well, you're definitely not teaching your kid any of proper emotional management. You're definitely not acknowledging them. Get like it is a gosh, I'm totally blanking on, but it's a slippery slope. It becomes we end up basically creating more of the problem that we're having because we're not doing the work, like you're saying, to stop, fix ourselves, and then equip ourselves to be able to fix next generations, right? So it's just one of those things that if we don't do the work for ourselves, unfortunately, I think it's just going to get worse and worse.
Yeah. And we while
And
life
that
is challenging right now, we also are sitting in a really sweet spot. I mean, it's hard, but we're also looking at we've never lived in this world because this world has never existed. December 9th,
Right.
2025 hasn't existed until today. Um, and we are living in some challenging times, but we're also living in some really exciting times because we get to make a choice. We get to decide how we're going to show up in the world. We get to decide if I want to be better today than I was yesterday. Those are my choices. And then if I take that mindset, I want to be better today. Well, what we do becomes a ripple effect. And so, how I choose to show up, there might not be immediate changes, but we realize that when I start to change, because first, I can only change for myself, I can't change for anybody else. And I don't change because I want somebody else to change. I change because I desire change. But what I can tell you is when
Right.
I take that approach is I am going to be better today, tomorrow than I was yesterday. For me, there's a ripple effect. And so I cannot change my husband. I can't force him to be somebody that he's not. I can try to be a nag and I can try to in his ear, or I can work on me. And when I work on me and I
Right.
show up with ultimate respect for who he is as my husband, not for what he can just give me, but because he's my husband. And I take that mindful choice of I'm going to show up and I'm going to take respectful action and I'm going to use better words. I am going to treat myself better. Therefore, I'm going to treat him better. Guess what the outcome
Yep.
is? There's he just starts, and it's not manipulative. I'm not, and if nothing ever changes
Right.
between him and I, that's okay. But I'm working to be better for myself. And what I can tell you is when we invest in ourselves, there will be a ripple effect and it will start to affect the most important people in our lives, our husbands, our kids, our closest friends, our colleagues. But if we're expecting change to come from the outside in, it's not going to happen. It's from the inside out. So,
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. I love that. And in this, we probably need 2 or 3 more hours, Stephanie. I feel like we could go
we
a
could
lot
go
of
we
different
could go
directions
for a
here.
long time.
I we definitely could. There are some things about the your business that I was curious about. I know you've obviously got this long-term goal of getting it to 1,000 groups. I was just curious how big is it now?
You know,
Two groups?
three groups. We have two in person and we have virtual. So I have a lot of work to
I love
do.
that.
I have, we were 12 at our height. We're back down to three. And you know, I'm taking necessary action steps to be different. And I will tell you this: if you do the same thing over and over and over again and you expect a different outcome, that is the definition of insanity. And in my
Yeah.
healing of myself, this last 15 years, I feel like I've earned my MBA. I feel like I've earned my doctorate, all of those things. But really, what it comes down to is I had a lot more brokenness inside of me than I realized,
Yeah.
and a lot of self reflection. And I we will get to that thousand. I know we will because I've done the work. And I say that not boastfully, but I say it confidently.
Yeah.
And the thousand may not come while I'm alive, but the thousand will come because I am building a legacy business. And I didn't do that at the beginning. And in the last, probably 18 months, my mindset has changed. And so I am confidently saying I am building a legacy business and we will have 1,000 chapters. It just may not be while I'm here on planet Earth, but I'm building foundationally something that somebody else someday can come and put their flavor on it, their icing on it, and run with what I've built. And when we started 15 years ago, I wasn't building from that place. I was building from a broken place, and now I'm building from a healed place. And so it will be with a lot of hard work, a lot of tenacity, a lot of saying, I don't know what I don't know, and being willing and teachable and coachable and seeking what I valuing what's inside of me and realizing where I have gaps because we don't know everything and letting other people stand
Right.
in their brilliance and letting them do what they are here on planet Earth for. I don't have to do it all. And I think for a long time, I was kind of felt like I had to do it all. And that was an issue of my worth because I didn't feel valuable. I didn't feel that I had the right. And so as you heal yourself, and you can stand in your own value and your own worth, then you can see people for who they are and let them shine. And so we will do it. We will do it building in community. We will do it, in our language, woven together because we're the Tapestry Network. And so it's got to have the dream, you got to have the vision, and then you got to find the people and the resources to
Yeah.
help support the dream and the vision. And knowing, again, as entrepreneurs, I think that's one thing that we just kind of do is we just kind of run. We run with all of the things and we don't know what we don't know. And a lot of times our pride and ego gets in the way. And I will tell you, the strongest person I have ever met is the person who asks questions and who asks for support. That's what makes them strong. It does not make them weak.
Yeah. I think one of the biggest challenges that we face as entrepreneurs is that as soon as we have the vision or the dream, we don't always understand how much work and how long it's going to take to actually see that dream come true, right? And so it's especially like you mentioned early on with social media and seeing other people winning and growing, it's very easy to be like, I want it and I want it now. And then you realize, like you said, oh, there's actually so much growth that I have to be the person that can create this thing that I envision. It's like now I finally realize the actual mountain I have to climb. Before I just thought it was this idea, right?
But I had to throw some cool marketing and some taglines and define my niche, and it would just all magically happen. And,
Right.
and I think for
Yeah,
some
just
people
come
it
together.
does. And we need those success stories because they bring hope, right? But the
Yep.
average, that I don't want to say average and like we're not, I don't, can't think of another word besides average, but
The middle, yeah. I mean, average in the truest sense of the word, in the middle, not on the outliers of you never get there and you get there overnight. It's like
right.
most of us are
Yeah, just that
average
kind of that
entrepreneurs, right?
middle, that bell curve, right?
Yeah.
Most
Yeah.
of us find ourselves in the center of what that's going to look like.
Right.
And and one of the things that I would also say, how am I going to get there? I'm going to give. Because
Yes.
if I come with a giver's mentality and like I again, because I am a faith a faith driven business, I know it doesn't belong to me anyways. So for me to hold on to something is very greedy because God gave me the ideas, the ability, the gifts, the skills, the talents, the resources. So I always approach everything with a giver's attitude and I will share everything. Like I'll even tell you how to build your own community. Like I'll tell you, I will sit down with you and I will give you everything that was successful, everything that almost broke me, and everything in between. And I will support you and I will be like your biggest cheerleader because here's the reality. There is no way I can serve everybody on planet Earth. I can't.
Right.
I can't.
Yeah.
And I also realize that there are certain people that are not for Stephanie, and that's okay too, right? And so
Yeah.
if my heart is to connect women and help build community and help them identify and let them know that they're beautiful and they're brilliant and they're unique and they bring value to the world, I am not everybody's cup of tea. That's the reality. But if I can impart that to somebody else and she can build for her cup of tea, and so we're supporting more women. More women are feeling their worth and their value and they're seen and they know that they're important. Then that's part of my ripple effect. So it's not just what I can build, it's how I can help other people build as I'm building. And then the other thing is, we serve entrepreneurs. Somebody else who builds a community might build a community for people who work in dentist's office, right? And so if I meet somebody who is a service provider and that's really kind of not my niche, I'd rather pass that through to the person who can truly serve them, that has that heart for
Right.
that person. And, the example I always use is, if God gave you a gift of numbers and he gave me a gift of numbers, he's not setting us one up for success and one of us up for failure. He's giving us he's given us the same gift, which is the gift of numbers, but I put my spin on it and you put your spin on it. And if I know that you love to serve multi-million-dollar companies, and I want to serve the small mom and pop, might have the skill set to do what you do. Like I might have that skill set. I'm a CPA. I've done the schooling. I've got the education, but that's not what makes me happy. Why would I want to take that client? Yeah, it might make me a lot of money,
Right.
but it's not going to bring me joy. Then what that's doing is it's
Yeah.
taking away from the people who I ultimately want to serve. And just like you totally could serve the small mom and pop, that you're like, that's just not my thing. That's just not my thing. So I'm going to send that person off to Stephanie, and Stephanie's going to send off her person to me. And that's just such a different mindset, because what the world tells us is take your competitor out. And what I'm saying is find some
Right.
competitors that do something similar to you, and let's work in collaboration, because we go so much farther in collaboration than when we do trying to work independently and be backstabbing people.
Absolutely. No, I agree 100%. And we are already a little bit over time, so I want to
Okay.
make sure I'm respectful of your
Oh,
schedule,
no,
but
I'm
I
good.
would love to hear.
I'm good.
Okay, perfect. I would love to hear. I mean, you obviously you're kind of in this great position, poised for growth. So as 2026 is showing up, what are you thinking about tactically? How are you planning on marketing? Is it going to be a lot of social media content? Are you doing word of mouth? Like, how do you start to get some real traction this year?
So I have actually partnered with somebody. And so again, working in community, and we are weaving the Tapestry Network. And so I would say also, if you're looking for growth, transformation, sometimes you got to look at what you have, keep what's good, get rid of what's not working, and maybe add in some new stuff. And so, really looking at re redevelopment, and you look at like Kodak as an example, and when digital started to make the market, Kodak didn't see themselves as a camera entity. They saw themselves as a film entity, and they didn't stay up with the the times, right? And so I one of the things that we've had to do from a growth strategy is, we started it last year, and then my, life lifed, and we made our final move. My dad lost his battle with cancer. There's been a lot, we had to literally knock our house down to the ground and start all over again and rebuild, over a third of our home. And so that meant we lived in a trailer for 8.5 months. And I mean, so it's been a lot. But I'm learning. It's so then, instead of being angry, what can I learn from those experiences? How did they shape me? How did they mold me? How do I carry that into my business? And what kind of, in the house having to be knocked down, it was like, okay, I got to look really serious at my business. And I don't want to hold on to things just because there's comfort, because comfort is easy. And we're not called to necessarily live comfortable lives. We would like to live comfortable lives. And so, really looking at everything and saying, okay, nothing is a sacred cow. I'm willing to give up everything, the name, the design, the logo. I'm willing to give it all up to stay on mission, to stay on vision, to stay on purpose. And so we're actually doing a relaunch, and we're coming we've kept the things that are really important and core to our culture, but looked at everything through that litmus test. We desire, our goal is to touch the lives of 2 million women by the end of 2030, so 5 years from now. And is what I'm doing today going to get me closer to that thing, or am I just going to do the thing because that's what I've always done? And so really reevaluating, where we're at, and repositioning ourselves. And it's going to be a lot. Like, I don't have all the answers right now, but I do know the direction that we're going. And it's sometimes you've also got to let go of certain things so that you can make space for new things. So there's been like a
Yeah.
reevaluation of technology. We've gotten rid of 2/3 of our technology. We're adapting new technology. And
Oh, you
so,
okay.
reevaluating your systems, reevaluating what you do, your marketing, all of the things. Like, we're looking at everything that we touch on a daily basis, weekly basis, monthly basis, and nothing is off limits. If it works, it works. If it doesn't, it doesn't, and then we move on. So there's going to be a lot of conversations next year, a lot of sharing, a lot of showing up, um, and a lot of, again, coming from my healing. I stood behind the name of my organization for literally the first 14 and a half years. Like, I didn't want to be seen. I just wanted people to know the Tapestry Network.
Right.
And so it's also getting out in
Yeah.
front. And I think, and I don't know, like I said, I don't hang out with dudes, but I know for women that can be challenging, to be the face of
Yeah.
something, to be seen, because what's going to start to get in your head is, who do you think you are? You're 15 years old.
Yeah.
You have no worldly success, and you're going to come out in front and you're going to run an organization of 2 million people. Who do you think you are? Yeah. And so then, the other
Yeah.
part of it is its mindset. It's really getting serious about the vision, the mission, the mandate, the mantle, and going forward, even when you don't know all the answers, but you take just that next right step.
Yeah. I love that. Well, as we're wrapping up here, I would love to know where, if people hear all this, they want to get involved, they want to be a part of it, where should we send them? Where can they connect with you?
You can go to the tapestrynetwork.com. Check us out there. Nothing's happened on the website yet. So all the changes, just got off a strategy call right before our call and super excited. Like, we've got our pricing nailed down and we've got all this stuff, but you can go check us out at the tapestrynetwork.com, knowing there's lots of things coming. We do have a private sister Facebook group on Facebook called Our Daily Thread. THREAD, Our Daily Thread. That's a great place to just get encouragement and hang out. You can catch me on Amazon, Stephanie Sherwood. I have lots of resources, lots of books, and just hit me up. I love a good conversation, and I love to serve and share, and I love to help women bring their dreams to reality. And I have, one of my superpowers is I see things differently than the average person. And so you can tell me something and I'm like, oh, you could do this and you could do that. And it just, those ideas
Yeah.
just come to me easily. And it is, all glory to God on that one. Cause, in my human brain, I couldn't be that smart. So
I love that. Well, this is great. I'll definitely include all of that in the show notes so people can connect with
sure.
you and keep up with what's going on. And Stephanie, this was fantastic. Thanks so much for your time.
Oh, thank you. And it's been great. I hope this hits some food for thought for your audience, because I always want to deposit good things. So thank you for the opportunity.
Absolutely, of course.